first seeing him practice, I'm like, yo, this is Michael Vick. He is.
Michael Vick was the #1 overall NFL draft pick and was on a path that had all the signs of a Hall of Fame career. Then, at just 27 years old, everything collapsed. He went from one of the most electrifying players in the league to federal prison. So what really happened? And how did it all fall apart? Let's break it down. From the projects to the top of the world. Michael Vick was born on June 26, 1980, in Newport News, Virginia. He grew up in the Ridley Circle Homes, a public housing project in the east end of the city. His parents were teenagers when he was born. His father, Michael Body, worked as a shipyard sandblaster. His mother worked multiple jobs. There was no money. His father, nicknamed Bullet, taught him football at age 3. Sports kept Vick off the streets of a neighborhood where crime and drugs were a constant. At Warwick High School, he threw for 4,146 passing yards and rushed for 1,048 as a 3-year starter. Then came Virginia Tech. In 1999, Vick led the Hokies to an 11-0 regular season and a Sugar Bowl appearance. He set an NCAA passing efficiency record of 180.4, earned first-team All-American honors, Big East Offensive Player of the Year, and finished 3rd in Heisman voting as a freshman. Virginia Tech retired his number 7 jersey. He left after his sophomore year and never looked back. The Atlanta Falcons traded up to select him with the first overall pick in the 2001 NFL Draft. He ran a 4.33-second 40-yard dash at his pro day. He signed a 6-year, $62 million deal. He was 20 years old. The Falcons had never had anything like him. In 2002, he led them to a playoff win, a first-round upset of the Green Bay Packers, the first playoff victory in franchise history. In 2004, he led them to the NFC Championship game. He finished 2nd in MVP voting that year. The following season, he earned his 3rd Pro Bowl. By 2006, he was the first quarterback in NFL history to rush for 1,000 yards in a single season, a record that has never been broken. He had 4 Pro Bowl selections across his career. His career rushing total as a quarterback, 6,109 yards at 7.0 yards per carry, broke every record in the books. In 2004, he signed a 10-year, $130 million contract extension, the richest deal in NFL history at the time. There was no quarterback in the league who did what he did. He was, by every on-field measure, in a category of his own.
Yep. Mike, I lived in Atlanta when you were in Atlanta, and you might have been, you were as popular, if not more popular than Chipper Jones. And everybody,
That was Shannon Sharp on Club Shay Shay, speaking to Vick about what his life in Atlanta looked like at the peak. Chipper Jones was a franchise icon for the Braves, one of the most beloved athletes in Georgia history. Sharp was saying Vick had surpassed even that.
I mean, I had $13 million in the bank when I was 25, 26 years old and didn't know what to do with it.
Vick came from nothing, was handed everything, and had no framework to manage it. He told Sharp he had $13 million sitting in the bank at 25 or 26, with no idea what to do with it. The money kept coming, and he kept looking for somewhere to put it.
He used to always come to me like, you're spending all your money,
Falcons owner Arthur Blank was already flagging it. According to Vick, Blank kept pulling him aside about his spending. Vick's response was to go to Blank directly and ask him to help, to introduce him to people who could help him grow what he had and protect it.
I got $15 million in the bank. I don't know what to do with this money.
He was trying to make moves. He had $8 million invested in a Union City, Atlanta development project, strip malls, restaurants, a community development grant. He says he was starting to see life differently. He had a daughter, a son. He was turning a corner, in his own words, just a little too late. Because back in 2001, the same year he was drafted 1st overall, the same year he signed that first $62 million deal, Vick had purchased a 15-acre property in Surry County, Virginia. He used a cousin's name to connect the address and set up childhood associates Purnell P. Funk Peace, Quanis Q. Phillips, and Tony Taylor on the land. Together, they started Bad News Kennels. The name was a play on Newport News, his hometown.
I still had the hood in me, and it's like, yo, we're gonna stay true to our roots.
That was Vick explaining why. He grew up watching dogfighting. It was part of the world he came from. And even with $130 million on the table and an NFC championship under his belt, he never stopped being from Ridley Circle. The operation ran from 2001 to 2007, 6 full years, while Vick was suiting up for the Atlanta Falcons every Sunday. It crossed state lines: Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, New Jersey. Fight purses ran as high as $26,000 to $40,000. Pit bulls were sourced, trained, and pitted. The ones who lost were executed. The first sign of trouble came on April 25, 2007. Surrey County authorities arrived at the property during a drug-related probe connected to Vick's cousin Davin Body, who had listed the Surrey County address as his own. What they found ended Michael Vick's career as he had known it. Over 70 pit bulls were on the grounds, most of them scarred and underfed, chained to buried car axles. There was a blood-stained fighting pit, a breeding apparatus, treadmills, brake sticks, drugs, gambling ledgers, and mass graves. The federal government took over the case immediately. On July 17, 2007, a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia indicted all 4 men on conspiracy charges tied to interstate commerce. Vick initially pleaded not guilty. By August, all 3 co-defendants had pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate with investigators. They named him as the primary funder. They placed him at the scenes of killings. On August 27, 2007, Michael Vick changed his plea to guilty. He admitted to financing the ring. He admitted to knowing about the killing of dogs going back to 2002. He admitted to agreeing to the execution of 6 to 8 underperforming dogs in 2007 by hanging and drowning. The NFL suspended him indefinitely that same month. The Falcons recouped approximately $20 million in signing bonuses. Every major endorsement deal was terminated or suspended. And on December 10, 2007, U.S. District Judge Henry E. Hudson sentenced Michael Vick to 23 months in federal prison. In 6 years, he had gone from the first overall draft pick and the face of the NFL to a federal inmate. Inside Bad News Kennels and what it cost him. The name Bad News Kennels was a twisted piece of personal mythology, a nod to Newport News, the Virginia city where Michael Vick learned to throw a football in the shadow of public housing. Permanently, the methods of removal were not accidental. They were deliberate, systematic, and escalating in cruelty. Held between 2 trees, the dog hoisted until it stopped moving. Others were drowned, their heads held beneath the surface of 5-gallon buckets of water. Others were electrocuted, car battery cables clamped to their necks after being doused. Some were body slammed into the ground with enough force to break their backs or snap their necks. In at least one documented incident, a dog was shot. Federal investigators, drawing on physical evidence and the detailed testimony of co-defendants who had agreed to cooperate, placed Vick at the scene of multiple killings. He was not a passive bystander, observing from a distance. In October 2007, after a polygraph examination administered during his bail period produced results that contradicted his earlier statements, Vick made a more direct admission. "I carried a dog over to Quannas Phillips, who tied a rope around its neck. I dropped the dog. Fight purses reached between $26,000 and $40,000 per event. Dogs and participants were transported across state lines: Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Maryland, New Jersey, creating the federal jurisdictional hook for the conspiracy charge. Breeding on the property used a restraint device described in explicit detail in federal filings. The kennels were stocked with performance-enhancing drugs, gambling ledgers, training equipment, and financial records documenting a years-long commercial venture. When federal agents and ASPCA forensic investigators excavated the grounds, they recovered the buried remains of multiple executed animals, mass graves carved into land owned by the highest-paid player in the NFL. 70 pit bulls were seized. Most of them were scarred. Most of them were underfed. All of them had lived their entire lives chained to car axles in the dirt.
I'm from a small town in the South.
Yeah.
And I know about dog
So you
fighting.
can relate, yeah.
But I had never heard of anybody going to jail either.
On Club Shay Shay, Vick told Shannon Sharp he simply hadn't believed prison was a realistic consequence for dogfighting. It was normalized in the community he came from. The idea of a federal indictment felt foreign, confusing even.
Yeah, I went to prison for interstate commerce.
Right.
Which was kind of, confusing, like, damn, okay.
The technical charge was conspiracy under interstate commerce statutes, but the sentence Judge Henry E. Hudson imposed on December 10, 2007 reflected something considerably more pointed than a legal technicality. Hudson called the operation cruel and inhumane, and cited Vick's failure to fully accept responsibility, his lies to investigators about his hands-on role in the killings, and a positive drug test for marijuana that he took while out on bail awaiting federal sentencing. Those facts stripped away any downward departure for acceptance of responsibility and drove the sentence to the upper boundary of the guidelines, 23 months. His co-defendants received less. Peace got 18 months, Phillips 21, and Taylor just 2 months for being the first to cooperate and provide the most detailed testimony against Vick. The disparity made the message from the bench explicit and unmistakable. Vick was the architect. He paid for the property. He funded the dogs. He bankrolled the operations almost entirely on his own. He was the gravitational center around which the entire enterprise had orbited for 6 years. Hudson told Vick from the bench that he owed an apology to the millions of young people who looked up to you. He was released on July 20th, 2009, after approximately 21 months at a federal facility in Leavenworth, Kansas, followed by home confinement. While Vick was incarcerated, the financial architecture of his life dismantled itself from multiple directions simultaneously, and some of the damage was inflicted not by the courts, but by the people he had trusted most with his money. The $130 million deal was effectively voided. The Falcons recouped approximately $20 million in signing bonuses. Every endorsement was terminated or suspended. Nike stepped back. The income stream that had been flowing at one of the highest rates in professional sports went silent, while legal bills, court-ordered restitution payments, and creditor demands accumulated at a rate that outpaced anything remaining in his accounts. In July 2008, Vick filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy with approximately $16 million in assets and between $17.6 million and $20.4 million in liabilities. This from a man who had earned more than $110 million in NFL salary. The money had not simply been spent, it had been systematically lost through failed ventures, fraudulent advisors, and the financial consequences of decisions made before he ever set foot in a courtroom. A car rental business collapsed, a wine enterprise folded. A marketing agency Vick had fired in 2001 won a $4.5 to $5 million breach of contract judgment against him through arbitration, a judgment that triggered asset levies and was a direct catalyst for the bankruptcy filing. A financial advisor named Mary Wong, who had been granted power of attorney over his accounts in 2007 and came recommended by a teammate, was later convicted of a Ponzi scheme targeting NFL players. She had transferred approximately $650,000 directly from Vick's accounts to herself and associates. The man subsequently brought in to manage his bankruptcy from behind bars, a man named David Talbot, turned out to have a falsified resume and was himself facing securities fraud charges in a separate jurisdiction. Vick's own retirement fund, managed through his MV7 LLC, had been drained of $135 million and used to pay dogfighting restitution and bankruptcy attorney fees. In direct violation of federal ERISA law, the Department of Labor filed suit and won a consent judgment requiring repayment. The bankruptcy trustee simultaneously pursued clawback actions against approximately $2 million in pre-prison cash gifts Vick had made to relatives and associates. And through all of it, the court had ordered him to pay $928.73 in restitution for the care and rehabilitation of the 53 seized dogs, money that had to come from accounts that were already technically insolvent on paper.
They took everything from me.
Right.
It took everything, Shan. Like I had $8 million invested in the city. They took it all.
The $8 million he had put into the Union City, Atlanta development project, the one he described as proof that he was finally doing things the right way, was seized in forfeiture proceedings. Plans, land, investment, all gone. He had entered that federal facility as the most recognizable athlete in America. He walked out 2 years later with nothing. No contracts, no endorsements, no savings, no investments. A man who had been worth more than $130 million was by every legal measure broke. The dogs, the backlash, and the question of what comes next. Of all the wreckage left behind by the bad news Kennels case, the 70 dogs seized from the Surrey County property proved the most complex and the most debated, not just in a courtroom, but in the long years that followed, as those animals became a kind of living referendum on what Michael Vick's story was actually about. The institutional position inside animal welfare circles in 2007 was stark. Dogs trained from birth to fight, conditioned through deprivation and systematic violence, raised without socialization or any positive human contact, they were considered beyond rehabilitation. The prevailing assumption was that euthanasia was the only responsible outcome. Multiple organizations, including some with genuine expertise, argued publicly that the Vick dogs could not be saved. The ASPCA forensic team, led by Dr. Randall Lockwood, conducted full behavioral evaluations on all 49 surviving pit bulls. Only one of the 70 was euthanized, the single animal whose aggression was genuinely unmanageable under any conditions. The other 48 were spayed and neutered, then placed in sanctuaries, foster homes, or permanent adoption situations. Best friends. Animal Society in Utah took in the most challenging cases and made a long-term commitment to their care. Those dogs were renamed. They became the Victory Dogs. Over the following decade, some of them became certified therapy animals. They worked in hospitals and assisted living facilities across the country. Others were adopted into families with children and lived full lives by every measure. The last 2 surviving Victory dogs died in 2021, each approximately 15 years old, long lifespans for pit bulls, and lives lived nowhere near a fighting pit or a buried car axle. Vick paid nearly $1 million in restitution for the care of those dogs. Court-ordered, yes, but paid in full. The case also left a legal legacy that extended far beyond Vick personally. Before 2007, dogfighting was not a felony in all 50 states. The Bad News Kennels prosecution accelerated state and federal legislative changes that made dogfighting a felony nationwide and stiffened federal sentencing guidelines for animal fighting enterprises. In 2011, Vick appeared before Congress to advocate for the Animal Fighting Spectator Prohibition Act, legislation that made attending a dogfight a federal misdemeanor. The bill passed. This is where the story becomes genuinely contested, and where the opposing camps have been talking at each other rather than to each other for close to 20 years. Vick's critics, led by organizations like PETA and the Humane Rescue Alliance, have argued consistently that his advocacy work has been minimal and performative relative to the scale and duration of what he orchestrated. They note that he was never actually convicted of animal cruelty. His federal plea was a conspiracy count. His state charge resulted in a suspended sentence and a $2,500 fine. He paid court-ordered restitution. He gave a handful of speeches under the Humane Society banner and lobbied for one piece of legislation. To the advocates who watched the rescue teams excavate those mass graves and photograph those scarred, emaciated dogs, that ledger has never balanced. PETA President Ingrid Newkirk, responding to Vick's December 2024 hiring as head football coach at Norfolk State, issued a pointed public statement based on interactions during his 2007 sentencing period. She added that PETA believes he will not fight dogs again, but the core position, that his rehabilitation has not been commensurate with the harm he caused, has not shifted. When the NFL named Vick a Pro Bowl Legends captain in 2019, petitions demanding the NFL reverse the decision gathered over 700,000 signatures. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell defended the decision publicly. The question of whether a second chance can coexist with genuine accountability, or whether the granting of public platforms and honors constitutes a different kind of erasure.
First to him practice, I'm like, yo, this is Michael Vick. He is ass.
That was LaShawn McCoy, one of the most gifted running backs of his generation, describing his first look at Vick after prison, when Vick arrived at the Philadelphia Eagles training camp in 2009. McCoy was not being cruel. He was being accurate.
No way.
Bruh.
No way.
Me, DJ, Mac, we ain't like, it can't be Mike Vick. He's scrambling.
Had taken something from the body. The reflexes that had made Vick the most physically dangerous player in NFL history were buried under 21 months of federal incarceration. The explosiveness that had made him unmatchable looked like it might be gone for good.
I don't know what happened in jail, but bruh ain't that. And then, because he was rusty.
Yeah.
But man, what he did was...
He knocked the rust off for sure.
Knocked that rust off. We was like, oh my God, this is Michael Vick?
Vick threw for 3,018 yards and 21 touchdowns with a 62.6% completion rate. Federal penitentiary 18 months earlier.
If Mike Vick never went to prison, would he have had a Hall of Fame career? What do y'all think?
He pioneered the archetype that Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, and Josh Allen now occupy. Every offensive scheme that builds around it. And he was doing it before prison took 2 years and the prime of his athletic life away. In 2009, in a 60 Minutes interview recorded shortly after his release, Vick sat down with James Brown and broke down on camera. He said, "I blame myself. I could have shut the whole operation down." He took full responsibility. He said the experience changed him. Whether that came. In December 2024, he was named the 19th head coach of Norfolk State University, an HBCU in Hampton Roads, the same region where Ridley served something from nothing in a place that Vick calls home. The dogfighting backlash followed him to that job the day it was announced. Social media erupted, messaging campaigns on Norfolk State's platforms. No sustained physical protests materialized at the campus, despite PETA's Norfolk headquarters sitting less than a mile away. The controversy settled into what it has been since approximately 2010. Persistent background noise, spiking at every new career announcement, never fully going away. The bankruptcy Vick filed in 2008, nearly $20 million in debt, was repaid almost entirely through his earnings with the Eagles and Jets. He repaid approximately 99% of his debts by 2017-2018. He later said, "I didn't want to stiff people who never stiffed me." New debts from private loans taken in 2018 produced a fresh cycle of creditor disputes and court filings through 2022 and 2024. including a December 2024 involuntary Chapter 7 petition filed against him and his wife over a $509,652 judgment. His attorney described it as a frivolous filing involving secondary market high-interest debt resold without Vick's knowledge. No resolution had been publicly reported as of early 2026.
They wanted nothing but the best for me,
Right.
but they knew I was a hard
Hard
head.
head.
That was Vick on Club Shay Shay, talking about the people in his circle during the bad news Kennels years, the ones who saw what was happening and didn't know how to stop it.
I mean, maybe they felt like, man, Mike you might cut me off
Right.
if I go too hard on him. And
Everyone around him made a calculation. No one went hard enough. And the decision that defined his career, one made before he ever threw his first professional pass, played itself out to its full and irreversible conclusion. His critics say what he did can never be fully atoned for. His supporters say no one in professional sports has rebuilt from a more complete collapse with more transparency about the wreckage they caused. Both of those things are true at the same time. What is not in dispute is this: Michael Vick was the most dangerous player the NFL had ever seen. He threw that away for a world that no amount of money or fame had ever fully allowed him to leave. The years of his prime, the seasons that might have put him in Canton without a debate, without a condition, without an asterisk, were spent inside a federal penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas, while the rest of the league moved on. That is the tragic fate of Michael Vick. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.